Catie Macken, welcome to the Further Forward podcast.
Thank you, friend. I'm so excited to be here. It's been a while in the making, but we have made it happen. And I'm just delighted to speak with you face to face, because normally we're communicating over voice note every day.
I know. We both have just had this trust in that we've waited this long because there was something that really needed to come out at this time.
Absolutely.
What that thing is, who knows? But we're here.
More to be revealed.
So some people are going to totally know who you are because when you lived on this coast, you were Boston wellness royalty.
Oh, thank you.
And I love you. And that's sort of no longer your life. This is no longer where you reside.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know you or maybe haven't spoken to you in a while, who is Catie Macken?
Yeah. And as I was walking this morning with my dog and on our one trail that we walk most days, I said, I just in my head to myself, I know she's going to ask me this. Who are you?
100%.
You know, what is your story? What do you do? And I know we all come to this with like, I can't put myself into a box of one thing. I am so many things. And for those that have known me in my East Coast days and in my Boston days, who I am now feels very different.
Mm-hmm.
And there are remnants of that, and there are similarities that I, look at old pictures of me and I'm like, wow, who is she? But I would say I am a deep feeler. I'm feeling emotional right now just talking about it. I am a mother to animals. I have 2 horses and a dog. I don't necessarily know if this is the right term, but I would say I am in some ways a medicine woman.
Mm-hmm.
I go into the deep depths of the psyche, the soul, the spirit with others, and I walk with them as we traverse that terrain and that territory. I am a breathwork facilitator. I am an equine facilitated guide. I'm a teacher in ways, and I'm just a student of this human existence, truly. So that's a little bit about who I am. And for those that, knew me before, like I was a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher and a mindfulness teacher. And those parts are still there and they have informed who I am now. But yeah, I'm just, there's a lot that has shifted since those days.
For sure. What was the first cue that being a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, kind of like how we see commercialized wellness happening? How did you know that that was something that you needed to let evolve into something else?
I knew that very early in the
Ooh.
journey. I mean, maybe not very early, but it was a while back. For years while I was still teaching group wellness classes and things like that, I knew that that was never going to be the end goal for me, that it was a stepping stone onto something else. And I didn't know the whole vision at the time. And a lot of it has come into form and into my awareness now as to what my life and my purpose and my, career, which are so intertwined, like they are not separate for me. They are very connected, but that there was something else. And I've always been very invested in working one-on-one. I love going deep with one person. And what I struggled with as a group fitness facilitator was really, and I stumble on fitness because that's not right what it is. And yoga is not about that, but it's just an easy way to kind of categorize what we did, is that you had all of these people, and let's say there's 50 people in a class and you've got 30 that are there to get a workout, and there's 5 that are there to process something deep. There are, 3 that think this is a core workout. There's like, 6 that are living the way of mindfulness and yoga as a lifestyle. And so with all of these competing intentions, I always felt like I was kind of missing my
Mm.
potential as an instructor, as a facilitator, and, kind of just grazing the surface. And so that evolution started, years ago back in Boston, but it really, the trajectory quickened as I moved to California in 2022, where I was really at this crossroads in, my life with where my career was, and moving out here was not some big dream. It was just sort of the circumstantial possibility of staying open to a different way. And I felt like what I had built in Boston was really complete at that time. And then coming out to California, um, I had this other kind of dream and vision that I was creating around this business for executive coaching and corporate experiences, sort of catered and centered around astrology and using the energetic current and weather patterns to support leadership. When I moved to Topanga shortly after that, I just was taken by this path that was unfolding. And I never knew that this was where I was going to end up. Intimacy is sort of one of my core values, having that intimate relationship with my clients, having that intimate relationship with, now my horses that are co-facilitators in the work that I'm doing is of the utmost importance to me and what I share.
What do you do with horses? How do you work intimately with people? What does your business look like in 2026?
Mhm. My work has kind of been at the intersection of well-being and, um, the business world. Like I've always sort of straddled the physical and the spiritual, the
Mhm.
practical and the magical. And so I started really only working in a container capacity, meaning that, someone comes in, we work together for a dedicated period of time where we're really focused on their intention. And that is a very open and co-creative experience. There is no method, there's no 5-step plan. We're not like, I'm going to help you make 6 figures and like this, those might happen as um, a supplement to the work that we're doing, but it's really about going into and building greater intimacy with self and deepening the relationship that these women have with who they are, their gifts, their potential, their wounds, their patterns, their limiting beliefs, and repatterning that. But around my 41, I think, 41st birthday, I just had this deep calling to be with horses. And I didn't really know what or why that was coming through. I just started taking lessons because we think horses and riding, like that's how, we compute that in our minds, or how we've been kind of conditioned to see working with horses. And I started taking riding lessons, and around the solstice in 2024, was thrown from a horse and miraculously was okay. So that happened. And when that happened, I took a step back and I just started going to the barn and sitting with the horses. And I would just sit there and I would journal and I would just be with them. And what came through along that time is I have a really strong connection to spirit, God, the universe, whatever, nature, whatever you want to name this, this subtle energy, is that I was really being redirected and that I was supposed to be or was being called to work with their medicine, the medicine of the horse. So,
Yeah.
where, my work is often in private retreats. So I have women that come for 4 days and we have 2 full dedicated days to deep work together. And that includes, breath work on the table in the pasture with the horses. That includes a lot of quiet and stillness and observation of both the horses, self, and nature. I also have people coming in, just for one-off experiences where they're, again, receiving breath work, they're receiving the medicine of the horses. I offer groups. Um, so that is a little bit about how I work with the horses in my work. And then I have the virtual side, which is one-on-one client containers, and then corporate experiences as well. So corporate experiences virtually, corporate experiences in person, and corporate experiences at the barn, utilizing the horses to help us gain an embodied understanding of what empathetic leadership really is. Because kind of my final thought here is it's what the horses bring for us, similar to the breath work, is that we're moving into that kind of altered state of consciousness where we're able to access creativity, imagination, intuition, the parts that have often been conditioned out of us or that we have disconnected from. And in that, their invitation into deep presence, we attune in our bodies what it feels like to be in a state of leadership, or what it feels like in our bodies to feel safe to express an emotion. And we can't think our way through it. And so much of corporate experiences and team development and all of that is really intellectual, but it brings us back into our feeling body. Okay, so I'll pause there. That's a lot.
I'm thinking several things.
Yeah.
One, I'm just like I'm laughing to myself for everyone who's listening and who's like, "What in the fuck? What?"
Yeah, I was like, did I even
That
answer your question?
no, you did. You did. But it's if you have never experienced
Right.
anything like this,
Totally.
that's the what the fuck, right? My foray into this is breath work with you.
Hmm.
And I've never worked with you with the horses. TBD. It's coming. It's coming. But I know that when I do breath work with you, it does take me somewhere else. And my medium for processing that is journaling immediately after. And the things that come up and the things that come through are, I think, my real self,
Mm.
maybe my higher self, but I know it's like the self that doesn't have to perform for people or to clean it all up for people. It's just the most true thing that I can the most pure thoughts that I could think and then put down on paper to be recorded. And what that then helps me do is, like you said, it's like this reorientation then of where my true north is,
Mhm.
where I might be stepping out of my integrity and, you know, uh, making, I don't want to say the wrong decisions, but just like making decisions that aren't as aligned or chasing what's not for me. So for people listening that might be like, I don't even understand how to begin to
Mhm.
feel what she might be talking about, you wouldn't even be able to begin unless you would trust that in the slowing down it's going to open you up to find what you might think you're looking for in your busyness. Like we don't
Mhm.
find who we are in this swirl that we put ourselves in, always on our phones, always on a screen, always go, 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 go. That shit sucks.
Mhm.
It sucks. And it's not your true self. Am I, Catie, am I like way off? I am not a facilitator in the way that you are a facilitator. So, in my layman's terms, how does that land?
I I absolutely hear what you're saying, and you you touched on a few key things that the work with the horses allow us to do, and kind of just overarching principles in my work, which is returning people to their truth, the truth of who you are, like that truest essence of self, the self that is unlimited, truly, soul, spirit, whatever you want to name that. And moving from limitation to possibility, moving from beyond, what we're supposed to do, what we should do, what is expected of us in terms of, society, family system, religion, whatever the system has been that has put us in a specific category or box. And this isn't to say that any of those things are wrong, but it's a moment to investigate, is this true for me?
Yes.
And
That.
in the point you made was that we have to slow down in order to hear the whisper of that part inside of us, because the external noise is very loud. And I just feel as though it's going to continue to get louder. We're in, I mean, a very like critical juncture in so many ways, not just in the United States, all over the world. And the pressure as the advancements with technology continue to increase is going to continue to get bigger and bigger. And this is not said to create fear or incite any type of like mania or panic, but it's just a reality of the world that we live in 2026 and beyond. And so what we need is that ability to connect to our truth, to connect to, again, that part inside of us that knows, who we are, why we're here, what we came to do, what we're in service of. And we have to slow down to hear that. And the I am most myself when I am in quiet and stillness with nature and with my horses. And they, as prey animals, are hyper attuned to their environment. Their heart field, so our heart field as humans is about, 8 feet, 9 feet in all directions around us. That is, your aura, your electromagnetic field, your biofield, whatever you want to call that vibration that
Mhm.
we can test that, we can feel that, right? And that frequency is set by our heart, the beating of our heart. And the heart of the horse is about 5 times, and this is, I'm making a broad statement here, right? Because we've got many different sized horses, but on average, it's about 5 times the weight of the human heart. So their heart field expands out 40 feet in all directions. And as we step into the field with them, our hearts start to kind of mirror one another. As they're, that field is always, as prey animals, they're always tracking their environment for any type of shift that could potentially mean danger.
Right.
And so as soon as we step in, and if we're holding something that we're not being honest about, we're not, we might not even be conscious of it because we've pushed it down so far into our subconscious or unconscious that it doesn't even have the potential. That's why it's easy to stay busy, because then nothing's going to come up. I'm
Yep.
never going to have to look at that wound from my childhood if
Yep.
I'm like constantly on my phone and I'm constantly on the go and I'm always consuming. There's always music, there's always podcasts, there's never silence or stillness.
Right.
It takes away the uncertainty that something might present itself. But when we step into the field of the horse, we can't hide from that, because they're reading not what we're saying and not how we're presenting ourselves, but what our energy is saying and the intention behind that. And we don't need horses to do that. I mean, we can just go sit in nature. There's not always ease of access to horses, right? Go step into the natural world where there isn't, a lot of noise and concrete and, man-made things.
We already know how to do that, right? It's ancestral to be with nature. Like, what we're doing is not natural. How we live is not natural. And the most prevalent diseases that people are dying from are proof that how we live is not how we were supposed to live. And that there's a disconnect between evolution and how fast technology has pulled us forward. Even for my ancestors who were enslaved, you had to know the land. You had to know how to interact with animals. It was part of it was dependent on your survival,
Yeah.
being in energetic relationship with other living things. So it's also just this for me, whether you're able to work with Catie or someone who does what Catie does, or if you're sitting next to a tree and breathing, that is your true nature.
Right.
There's got to be something, there's got to be something deeper that we have to be unafraid to excavate, I think.
Absolutely, because we all have our stuff,
Everybody.
everybody, and to some degree and level,
Yeah.
some more than others.
Yeah.
And the other part that I think is so important is that we are nature.
Mm, mm-hmm.
We are a reflection of nature, and spending time observing whether it's the horses or the tree in your backyard or the way that the wind moves the trees. I'm just like looking out my own door right now and like looking at this beautiful tree that kind of stands protection over my home. It's it's a remembering, as you said, of that essence within us,
Mm-hmm.
and a reminder that everything moves in cycle and season.
That is really important. Say more. Say more, say more, say more.
Yeah. So there is a natural beginning, initiation, building, growth, culmination, peak, and then a dissolution of everything in nature, including us as humans.
Right.
And so when things feel, who knows what it is, like a relationship coming to an end
Mm-hmm.
or the grief of someone passing, the grief of an animal passing, um, frustration within a role at your job, to go back to and observe just how nature speaks to us about that process. Nothing ever dies, it just changes form into something different. And that always brings me back to just, I mean, even the cycle of our own breath is the same. Everything has that pattern. Um, and so it allows us to be in greater alignment with our own true nature, our own natural rhythm, our own timing. And a lot of this too is like, we should be married by this date, you should have this, you should have that. And it's everyone is different, right? And so when those voices get so loud, I see nature as that reminder of like everything is in its own divine timing. And it allows for the permission to be right where you are. And sometimes that frustration is also a message, because every emotion is really just a messenger that's sharing, something about ourselves to ourselves, if we can listen to it, that yes, maybe we need something to change and we're not. There's some misalignment, as you said.
Right.
And it's not about judgment. And this is the thing that the horses bring, is that, they're not judging. They don't have the prefrontal cortex in the way that we do as humans. They have one, but it doesn't function in the same way. So they're not creating a story around
Hmm.
that, or, a judgment or a criticism about how you're arriving. They're just simply seeking truth and seeking that, they're asking us to be in attunement with that. And what's fascinating is that when we hit a chord of resonance in a session, whether that's, something comes up for someone that they didn't realize was there, or they name something that they didn't want to name because of the judgment of what we think when we say something. For example, anger with women, such a big one, right? Hard to express. It hasn't always been safe. Women should be, you know, the nurturers and people pleasing and all these behaviors that are often conditioned into us. But as soon as someone feels safe to feel that, or even just names that it's there and doesn't try and hide it or avoid it or even shift to fix it, the nervous system can relax and you notice the horse start to let go through their body, through a deep breath, through, a dropping of their head, which is another way that they find relaxation or regulation in their nervous system. And so it's just this like beautiful reflection of what's happening inside of us that we can witness on the outside.
Mm. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So in a typical session, there's no typical session. Why am I even starting the sentence like that?
Yeah.
If I am coming to you and let's talk about limiting beliefs. So if I'm someone who's struggling to let go of limiting beliefs, what's the first step with you?
Somatic practices. My container clients, at least one session a month is breath work, where we are going to, because we need to go into the subconscious and repattern. Okay. Like we can't think or intellectualize our way through that limiting belief. We
Do
can't
you
affirmation our way out of it, like unless we're we'd use healing statements when we're in that altered state of consciousness, because that is like we're reprogramming the new belief system. What were you going
Yeah.
to say?
Yeah, well, listen, if an affirmation could have done it, bitch, we would have been there already, right? Like I would have I ammed myself into a whole nother quantum by now if that worked.
Yeah.
But like when someone is in that state, is that when you're maybe coming back into conversation or asking them to journal or to talk or to whatever? Like,
Again, everything is so different. And so much of my work is just like intuitive, where I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I feel this. I'm noticing that this is coming into my awareness. And that,
Mhm.
my relationship with my intuition has been built over many, many years. You and I have talked about that. So I have like divine trust in it. And, so that's part of it. It's happening all in the moment.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then we still have time to reflect and talk about it at the forefront. But, a little practice that I love to do, and this is just anyone can do this for yourself, is that because how I see it is that there's a wound,
Hmm.
there's the wound, there's the childhood wound, the developmental wound, the attachment wound, whatever it is, the trauma, the experience. And then there's all these limiting beliefs that sort of dance around it
Yes.
that they're like connected to the wound, but we actually want to get deeper than the limiting belief. We want to get to what is the fear around that.
Right.
And so I love to play this game with my clients where if something comes up, it's like, okay, if this, then this. So,
Okay.
you know, if my partner leaves me, then I'll be alone. Okay. Then, and if I'm alone, then what will happen? And we just keep going round and round and round until we get to until that we lock into what is that like core piece of this fear
Hmm.
that is pointing us to that deeper
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
That's clear.
Yeah. So I love that. And that's something anyone could do, not in a session with me, just through journaling.
Right.
If this happens, then I'm afraid then this is going to happen. And just right stream of consciousness. Don't try to, again, overthink it or
Yeah.
intellectualize it. But because now you know where the journey's going. Usually I pop this one on a client and they don't know where I'm asking of them, right? So it's much easier for us to just flow in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we're gonna look at but it's just such a co-creative, like fluid experience where you're gonna come in with this intention to maybe work on this limiting belief. And then it's just going to evolve based on what comes up in the container. Intention guides energy.
Right.
And the first session with my container clients is always a lot of discussion. I have them do a bunch of journaling reflections prior, and they come to that session. We're going to talk through, what is the emotion you have the hardest time experiencing? Where do you feel stuck and stagnant in your life? Where do you feel in flow in your life? What, dependent on what they're maybe coming to me for, then other questions will come up.
Right.
And then everything is just going to be kind of an evolution based on what is presented in each session. And we also do some virtual sessions with the horses, which is just I'm out there with my camera and they're observing the horses, and it's wild how much can come up even in a virtual
Mhm.
session in that way.
Wow.
And then in a, if someone's coming for a retreat, let's say 4 days, they're, staying in Topanga, which where I live is just this wild, magical, incredibly untouched gem of little pocket of the Santa Monica Mountains outside of LA that is not LA. It's very different energetically. And it's part of the medicine that I bring is like my relationship to this canyon and my relationship to my work and my relationship to the animals, right? That all amplifies the energy that we're able to access in a session. And there's a reason why, they're coming to me. There's other facilitators and many other modalities that they could be utilizing. But again, I don't have to do a lot. Like
Yeah.
I just have to let the magic unfold. And it's about asking like, oh, the right question at the right time, or, incorporating this element when it feels aligned for where that person is.
I like that because most retreats, right, you're going with a group of people, everything's been pre-planned and you're either rolling with what the rest of the group is doing or you're completely opting out and then you're by yourself, right?
Mhm.
And this is an experience entirely for you.
Right.
And what you bring to it is just as important as I guess Katie the magic that you bring to it on the other side.
And a lot of times what we come to the table to work on is not what we need to work on.
Isn't that always the case?
So that's the like staying open to,
Yeah.
okay, what, yeah, like me, the person, the horses, the land, like what is it reflecting to us? What are we observing in the session that needs our attention? It's a lot of inner child work. For women, it's a lot of like creative womb work, like really reconnecting them to their creative power, um, their sexuality, their vibrance, their radiance in that way. Parts that have been shamed and really exiled in our society. Um, and a lot of shadow work.
Yeah.
Like those are a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that we're kind of accessing in a session.
You did not grow up like thinking that you were going to become this
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. What was your original intention for your life? Who did you want to be?
As a little girl,
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting is there was a definite time where I really wanted to be a zoologist.
Oh my gosh. So did Mark.
Really?
Yeah, like kind of like a Jane Goodall kind of vibe, like totally different from everything he is now.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was definitely the one thing I really remember as a child
Hmm.
wanting to do. And I mean, I never could do it now because like captivity and animals is hard. But yeah, there's always been this draw to animals for me. And
Huh.
and I didn't have animals. Like I didn't grow up with horses. I never grew up riding horses. Like this again was really such a trajectory that came through in the last 2 years, really. But
Yeah.
that was the one. And I think then there was a time where I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I don't know why. Probably because like, the conditioning around money started to get imprinted into like, you need to have a good career. You need to make
Yeah.
money. Like that's important. Um, so yeah, the zoologist.
Wow. And then by the time you got to high school and you're kind of
Oh
now
gosh.
staring down quote unquote adulthood, who did you think you'd become then? Like, what was the career trajectory looking like?
I mean, at that point, then I was so lost. I just
Yeah.
did not know. I was like partying and drinking and boys and
Did you go to college?
yeah, yep.
Okay.
I went
I
to
couldn't remember that. What was your
yeah.
major?
Oh, this was the thing. It was like when I would go to the counselor, the high school counselor, like, where do you want to go to college? What do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, business. Like, it's like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't even think about that. And
right.
so I went to a state school in Minnesota, which is where I
Okay.
grew up. For those people that don't know, I grew up in a very rural community in Minnesota. And I went to St. Cloud State, which is kind of up towards the Twin Cities. And I also just didn't know. And because I was going for business, there was one of the better business schools in the state, but they had kind of like all of these branches. It was like you could, focus on insurance or real estate or accounting, or there was maybe two others. But I went to the, what's funny is I took Psych 101 my first year. And when I would go see my counselor at college, they were like, you got like an A+ in psychology. Is that something you want to do? And I was like, I don't think so. Here I am, basically working in the psychology field in a
Basically.
different way.
Yeah.
And I honestly just, none of the schools of business were exciting to me. And so I just picked the one that was like the most, the least annoying:
Which was?
real estate.
I don't think I knew that.
Really?
Yeah, that's like I'm
Yeah.
processing that in real time right now. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you ever sold a piece of property in your life?
I did. Yeah. I
You
mean,
did? I did not. Oh my god. What? It's just like, oh my gosh.
ugh. So right out of college, because again, I didn't really want to do this. I
Yes.
was just following the expectation.
Right.
But yeah, I at that moment was so, I was just like completely numbed out. I was not connected to my soul at all. I was just going through the motions,
Damn.
and I was miserable, absolutely miserable. And I was like drinking a lot and, doing all the things that I needed to honestly numb out the fact that I was so unhappy. But so I graduated college, I got my real estate degree, I got in with one of the, the brokerages at where I grew up. And I did that for like a year and I sold
Mhm.
a few houses, but I was just not happy. And I had been bartending during college. So I basically then went back to was bartending full time, and then finally got a job in residential appraisal for the county, which is how I got on my government job era, which you maybe knew about
Oh,
that, but I don't know, even know.
that's less surprising, so it might be in
Yeah.
my consciousness
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then that was, 2008 until 2013. I did residential appraisal, and then I got a job in Minneapolis for Hennepin County and worked in commercial appraisal.
So if somebody is listening to this podcast and is like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get from where I am now to where I think I might want to be, what's your advice having lived many lives
Mhm.
from the time you were born till now?
Awareness is always the first thing. We can't change something we're not aware of. And so even in my work, this is always, attunement is the first piece. So that awareness of the desire for something different, or the frustration with a current situation, or, really paying attention to what your body, your heart, your soul, your spirit is communicating. What's happening in your external world too, right? Can often point us. And if there's patterns that keep coming up, pay attention to that
Yeah.
and start to be really honest with yourself around what it is that you do want, even if it feels impossible. Part of this journey for me in the later part, right? I didn't even realize this was available to me in the beginning part because I was, again, so like just completely gone from and disconnected from myself, from my soul, from my true nature, from God or universe or spirit, whatever you want to call it. But it's like we have to meet God halfway. Like we're in a co-creation with our life. We have choice. We have the ability to make different choices for ourselves. And so start developing that and deepening that relationship with yourself. So knowing like, okay, what am I working? What do I want to work towards? And that could just be that I want to work towards greater self-love and understanding. It doesn't have to look like something external or a career or a purpose, but it can be that.
Right.
And make a commitment to yourself and start to take yourself seriously. That's one thing that I love about myself is how committed I am to that relationship with me now.
Yeah.
And, every day I have practices and rituals that are non-negotiables because it's the commitment I've made to myself to just be with what's alive inside of me in that day.
Right.
So it's like attunement, awareness, honesty, which I've always kind of said that awareness, what is it? Radical honesty. No, radical honesty leads to radical compassion, leads to radical acceptance. So being honest with yourself, compassionate towards your journey, and not expecting that everything is going to change in a day. Like that's also the beauty of nature and these like reminders of season and cycle. Like it takes
Right.
hundreds of years for a tree to grow to its potential, which I actually just learned about this aloe. Is it aloe plants? Or it's a specific cactus. I might need to fact check this. We might have to put it in the show notes. But there is a specific desert plant that at the end of its life, it starts to grow this stalk that can grow like 30, 40 feet in the air. And I just have chills. It's, it essentially gives all of its remaining life force to growing this and then doing one massive bloom at the end of its life. And then it dies.
Wow.
Isn't that like, I was crying when I first learned about this. I was just like, that's so beautiful.
It is. Wow.
And it can this plant has been around for decades, and then all of a sudden, and that process can last months to do that. But all I'm saying is that nature, things take time. And in a culture that is obsessed with convenience and obsessed with speed and
Mm.
productivity and, faster, quicker, more, better, bigger, all of it, we can, everything is at our fingertips. We lose sight of the medicine of slowness. And so then, we get frustrated because we're not where we want to be, or it's not happening fast enough, or the change isn't, we do something once and we don't see the outcome that we want. And that's
Yeah.
where that compassion piece comes in of like, be compassionate with where you are and
Right.
realistic.
And realistic.
And then that leads to acceptance. So I hope that's helpful.
It is. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you feel needs to be said?
Babe, there's like 3 more hours to things that I have to say. I'm like,
Th
we're just getting
That's
started.
a fair point. That is a fair point.
No, I hope that if this has sparked curiosity, because I do think we just sort of grazed the surface of like what all of this looks like and what the possibility of this work is and how the horse is and why and all of it. But if there is like a glimmer of something inside, a whisper or a whim from someone that to reach out, to listen to that and see what's possible in the realm of this work. Or if you're a corporate team that really wants to, this is not a question that you or didn't ask me, but just things that I think are important to share
Yeah.
of like a corporate team that wants to create a really dynamic and embodied experience for your team that goes beyond the traditional developmental team offsite experience to reach out. Like we're at a real shift and being with nature, being in nature, nature-based experiences are going to become so important to help ground us in what is real and true amidst the chaos and the noise and the again the just the speed at which technology is advancing. Like
Yeah.
it's already happening, right? Where we're not sure like is that real? Is that AI? Is that what is that? And the easiest way to do that is to touch the dirt, sit with the tree, be back with the physical, come back to the physical realm
Yeah.
and be quiet and get quiet. So,
Fully agree.
yeah.
I will also say that attending your breathwork circles
Hmm.
are a very easy, accessible entry
Totally.
point. Just to experience the breathwork and see what comes up from that. And I think you
Mhm.
can very quickly from there kind of decide like, is this the path for me? Is this not is this the facilitator? Is this not the facilitator? Like, but it's kind of a lower stakes way
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
experience it. And you can attend live, but you can also just pay for your spot and then get the recording. So there's even like no pressure to be on the screen with other people, right? You can
Yeah.
like watch it in your own private little whatever, although I recommend community and community spaces. But if you're like really, really hesitant or freaked out, there are ways where you can experience it really low key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, that said, what are all of the ways that people can find you, engage with you?
Everything is my name, which is makes everything very easy. My name, though, is important to know starts with a C. So Catie, Catie, and then Macken, Macken. So on, social media, Substack, uh, I only really do Instagram for social media. I'm not a TikToker and Substack. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. And then that's also my website. And my website has all of the information on all of these options and just more about kind of my my methodology and what I how I see my work. And you can email me, same thing, Catie@catiemacken.com. And would love
Love it.
to just see people in a group, or if you're in the California area or Southern California area, please come visit. And then if you wanna do a retreat, please reach out because I have some spring dates, depending on when you're listening to this, but there will always be, some open dates in the future to
Nice.
come out and experience the medicine of the herd.
We love it. As a final moment together,
Mhm.
I want to come back to this idea of completion and walking away. When you start to investigate what you want, who you want to be, what emotions you're not allowing yourself to tap into, all of those things where you're holding yourself back. Part of it is because once you start to walk the path, a lot of things fall away.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so hard. People, relationships, jobs,
Yep.
everything that you thought you knew, everyone that you thought you knew. And that is, I would argue, one of the reasons why people don't start is because that kind of disruption, it takes a lot of guts, I think, to move through that. And so using you leaving Boston and feeling like that part of your life was complete, even as you're well known, making money, winning Best of Boston, people know who you are. How did you become okay with that goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, that just comes down so much to this, like, trust in myself and trust in that inner voice that knows that it's okay to walk away,
Mm,
because I wrote this something when even at, like, when I left Minnesota to come to Boston, I was in a really great position with my job. Like, I didn't hate it. But I wasn't fulfilled, and that was the thing, is like I left something that was fine and okay for in seeking something extraordinary, knowing that there's it's like a whim and a whisper is what I call it in myself. It's like this whim and this whisper that I listen to, that is really the direction of my heart. And to just trust what might be on the other side of what is unknown and uncertain. And the more that we can develop a sense of that voice and trust in self and respect for the choices that you're making, the easier it is to honor that and know that there are going to probably be a lot of feelings about it. You and I talked about this last time I was in Boston. When I go back, like, I feel a lot of grief because there's still core, not because I know that it was the right choice, not because of the life I had, but because of the people that are still there, yourself included, that I don't have immediate access to all the time. Like, I can't just meet you for coffee, or can't go have a tea ceremony with my horses, and that is challenging. But it's also, you have to trust that you're coming into congruence with yourself. Like, that's really what it is. It's like those choices were bringing me into greater congruence with who I am becoming, not who I was 10 years ago or even a year before. But it's like aligning with that. I it's not the future version of self, but it's just that, like, purest truth of who you are at that level. So yeah, that's all I really have for that right now, but there's so much to be said on it.
yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's perfect. What needed to be said was said.
Was said. Yeah.
Friend, thank you for coming on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
Oh,
of course.
anytime.
Yeah, come back. I mean,
We'll start
we have,
scheduling now, and I'll see y'all in 6 months.
I know. I was gonna say, like, we should do a live podcast from Topanga,
Oh my
like,
god,
just
yeah.
do, right, like an experience. I don't know what that would sound like, or if if there would be any sound, or if it would be just us breathing into
It
microphones, but that might be something just really different, really cool. I don't
I
know.
mean, what
Planting a seed.
yeah, like, I did that vocal session for Mark. Like, it's beautiful to
Yeah,
hear the birds and hear the sounds, and as
that's
all,
true.
everything is like has to be perfect all the time, and it doesn't have to
It
be.
doesn't. It doesn't.
No.
And it never is anyway.
Right. I
Really
love that
never.
idea.
Okay. Well, and so it shall be.
It shall be.
Is that it?
Thank you, love. Thank you for having
Oh,
me.
thank you. All right, everybody, go follow Catie. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you soon.